Pentacle, chapter 15, 1-5, strength. The first thing that Kain did when he returned home was open. The camping trip came to an end without any further incident. The first thing that Kain did when he returned home was to open the time capsule with Jack, Ken, and Esther. The time capsule was a thin lunchbox featuring the Muppets. Kain never cared for the Muppets, but his mother only allowed him to see educational shows. Inside the box, there were some water-soaked letters, and based on the handwriting, the letters had been penned by Kain's mother, Bella. The other letters had an unfamiliar handwriting. Jack looked through the envelopes in search of anything of value, and he smiled when he found an envelope with $10,000. And for the correspondence, as for the correspondence, they were promptly thrown into the garbage can. The final object of interest was Bella's jewelry box. The box was filled with all expensive jewelry that Bella had bought with Jack's credit card. "So you hate your mother's nest egg, and that is why she went ballistic," said Jack thoughtfully. "Pretty much," said Kain. "Mother was going to run away with her lover, but she didn't want to start over without a penny to her name. So I hid her nest egg, and I destroyed her favorite dress. Everything went according to plan, except for the part where she nearly killed me." "If your mother was stealing for your father, you should have told us," said Ken. "I did, but you didn't understand me, Uncle Ken," said Ken. "At the end of our conversation, you thought you bought me an Atari, and I also told Grandpa that my mother hated me and about the NyQuil, and I don't know what he understood, but the result of the conversation was that he gave my mother more spending money." "The woman is dead, Kain," said Jack, rubbing his temple. "She no longer has the power to hurt you, and while you keep bringing her up in practically every topic of conversation." "I don't always bring her up," said Kain meekly, "and before meeting Eugenia, I had never spoken about her. She reminds me a lot of my mother." "Kain, your mother left you when you were 4, and when she came back, you only interacted with her for a few days before she passed away. There isn't a lot of your mother for you to remember," reasoned Esther, "and believe me when I say this, Eugenia is nothing like Bella. The two do not even look alike, and if you do not believe me, take a better look at the photograph I left by your nightstand." Kain went to his bedroom and he got a good look at the photo, and after seeing that face so often in random places, he had grown desensitized to Bella's face. Esther suggested, "Tell your mother how you feel, Kain." "What's the point? She's already dead," protested Kain. "She can still hear you in the afterlife," reasoned Jack, "and if anything, this pointless task might be therapeutic." Kain stared at the portrait of his mother, and the black and white photograph showcased a medium-built woman with a perky bosom, raven eyes, and gray eyes just like the ones of her son Kain. Kain outwardly stared at the photograph, wishing to get away from this situation. And Jack took his son's hand and he said, "Here's what I would like to say to your mother. Bella, you monster. How could you do that to the baby? And there's a special place in hell for demons like you. And there, you see that, Kain? I gave that woman a piece of my mind, and I feel all the better for it." Kain, after thinking his lines, said, "Mother, if you didn't have the intention of loving me, I wish you would have left as soon as I was born." Kain then buried his face in his palms to cry, and Jack took Bella's photograph and he threw her in the garbage can where she belonged. And since this time castle belonged to Kain, it fell on him to decide how to divvy up the money. He gave his father $4,000, and the other $6,000 was divided among the other 3 siblings. And as for the jewelry, Esther was going to slowly pawn it. As for the jewelry, Esther was going to slowly pawn it off, and the word came, and Kain fell back into his new happy routine. At the crack of dawn, he would go jogging, and after his morning workout, he would shower and then make breakfast. His father would drive Kain to work and Esther to the senior center, and he would process evidence till he was bored to tears, and then he would assist Siddhartha on his patrols, and in the middle of the day he would be sent to Unla to do his exposure therapy for 1 hour, before being shipped back to his office, and once he clocked out, Kain would spend 2 hours helping Eugenia with her thesis, and at night he would watch TV with his father, or he would play video games, while his father played the guitar, and Kain was finally at peace with his father's presence. Jack, on the other hand, was still iffy about the entire situation, and when he started living with Kain, Jack had imagined that the two would be roomies. He had underestimated just how emotionally needy his son truly was. Jack had imagined that his son had grown up happy without him, and it was convenient for him to think that way. And on one night, Jack was was staring at their unfamiliar roof, and sleeping beside him was his son Kain. And when Kain was a toddler, he would always leave the crib to sleep beside his father. And after the first few times of doing that, Jack would place the baby beside him in order to save the infant the trip. Jack kept thinking about his early life with Kain, and he was trying to decipher what about his parenting style had inspired so much love and devotion on a child that he rarely saw. And when the two were together, Jack was always playing with his son, or he would buy him many things to overcompensate. And he was always complimenting every little thing that Kain did, and even when he made mistakes. And Jack would engage Kain in conversation, then asking his son to repeat himself in order to understand his babbling. Jack was also physically affectionate. He was like a huggy father. But in a good way, a la Cuban stuff. Maybe he remembers me fondly because I was probably the only person who ever hugged him, said Jack Moore to himself. And as if to confirm this fact, Kain snuggled closer to his father. The following morning, Jack used his lunch break to speak to Una about his big baby. And when he entered her office, she was in the middle of giving her sister Barbara a treatment. Jack watched with curiosity the liquid being pumped into Barbara's veins, and once it was over, Barbara sighed with relief. "Give me some of that," said Jack happily. "It is just a bit of supplement," said Ulla, "and the other injection is steroids. My sister suffers from psoriasis, and the steroids help clear up her condition, and you wanted to check up on Kain's progress." "Or regression," said Jack, "and he has been a little clingy these past few days." "I can only imagine," said Ulla dryly, and she opened her cabinet and she dug up a few articles on touch starvation, and she photocopied those articles in order to give Jack a bit of literature to help him understand his son's latest malfunction. "So the days he gets extra clingy is because he's under a lot of stress," commented Jack, and changing the subject, he asked, "And how's your daughter doing?" "She's pretty busy with her new work and her new girlfriend," said Ulla, "and now that she has a full-time job, she has completed her transition into adulthood." "When Kain is with you, what does he talk about?" asked Jack. "Doubt the patient confidentiality," said Ulla. "I can give you the specifics, but mostly your son feels guilty for not living up to his grandpa's expectations. And he also doesn't like his job, but he likes the financial security and he enjoys spending time with his uncle. He's currently conflicted with the Eugenia situation, and he likes her, but he doesn't want to develop an emotional attachment to someone who is incapable of loving him." "Why does he think that Eugenia won't fall in love with him?" asked Jack. "What I got from his diary was that Eugenia would leave him because not even his own mother was able to love him," said Una. "All the women who had ever dated him leave, and Karina is also guilty in this department." "Nobody's perfect," said Jack, trying to be conciliatory. "And if I was Kain, I would just enjoy Eugenia's body without forming an emotional bond. And not every affair needs to be important or meaningful." Jack returned to his work with his study in mind, and he debated this topic with his boss Arjuna, and Arjuna gifted his underling a copy of the Bhagavad Gita to give to Kain. And this Hindu book gave Kain a lot of food for thought, and he decided to date Eugenia without stressing about the real possibility that she was going to leave him, or as soon as she got bored of him. It was a cloudy September afternoon in Eugenia's beachfront property, and with her thesis completed, she was pondering what to do with her newfound freedom. And there was an unexpected knocking at the door, and Dorothy was the one to answer it, and she giggled when she saw Kain clutching a Tupperware filled with home-baked goodies. And Dorothy took the goodies, and she went to the kitchen to munch down on the elegantly decorated cupcakes. And Michael was at home for a change, and he wasn't in a working type of mood, and he was sitting in the couch with his wife on knees. And the two were watching Mythbusters, and Michael frowned when he saw Kain's cheap tribute. And after trying the cupcake, Michael had to admit that Kain was an excellent pastry chef. "Do you know any other recipes?" asked Michael. "I do, but most of the cooking I do is purely utilitarian," explained Kain, and he was about to rant about his sad, pathetic, lonely childhood, but he chose not to. "So when I get bored of eating the same thing over and over, I attempt to learn new recipes. I recently learned how to make Cuban flan. Unla taught me how to make it." "Why are you here?" asked Michael, interrupting Kain's baking rant. "I came to hang out with Eugenia," said Kain. "Her thesis is already done," said Michael, and he reached into his pocket and he handed Kain $500. "For your troubles." "Are you paying me to go away?" asked Kain, becoming offended. "Take this payment for what it is," said Michael, placing his arm around Kain's shoulder. "You provided a service, and now you're receiving remuneration for all your hard work." "Thanks, I guess," said Kain grudgingly accepting the money. Kain went to Eugenia's room, and after helping Eugenia with her schoolwork, he had become familiar with her bedrooms, and the balcony windows were littered with orchids that Eugenia watered religiously, and there was a library filled with her coursework and her writing table and an expensive Apple computer. Her walk-in closet was overstocked with dresses, shoes, handbags, and just about everything she needed to shine. And her flavor for craftsman furniture made or reclaimed wood contrasted greatly with the mid-century modern decor of the rest of the house. Eugenia was roosting on top of her bed while she watched an episode of Blind Date, and she had not bothered to get changed out of her pajama. Kain sat down on the bed and he offered Eugenia a cupcake. Eugenia took the cupcake absentmindedly, and she waited 10 minutes, and then she sighed with disappointment. She turned her head, and then she saw that it was Kain who was sitting beside her. "You didn't like the cupcake?" asked Kain. "It was fine. It was great even," said Eugenia, not desiring to elaborate. "And what are you doing here, Kain?" "Never mind. See you around, Eugenia," said Kain, leaving the bedroom. "Bye, Kain," said Eugenia, still sunning out. Kain made his way downstairs, and Eunice commented, "Leaving so soon? Can't say that I blame you." "I wasn't leaving," lied Kain, "and Eugenia simply wanted me to bring her a glass of water." Kain made his way towards the kitchen, and Michael watched with what amusement the lad struggling to find the refrigerator, and the fridge seamlessly blended with the other cabinets. And Eunice, playing hostess, left her seat, and she opened the fridge for Kain, and she dug for him a sparkling water, and then she handed it to him. The young man returned to sit beside Eugenia, and Kain placed the cold water within Eugenia's grasp, and the medium opened it absent-mindedly without bothering to look at the man sitting beside her. And there was an awkward silence, and Kain fiddled with the wad of cash he had received from Michael. Since he didn't feel right about taking this money, he left it beside Eugenia's nightstand. And during the commercials, he attempted to talk to Eugenia. "How are you doing today, Eugenia?" asked Kain. "I'm fine, and you? Do you need anything from me?" asked Eugenia. "I didn't come here to take anything from you, Eugenia," said Kain. "Then why are you here?" insisted Eugenia. "I came to hang out," said Kain. "Oh!" exclaimed Eugenia, surprised. "I'm not in the mood to go out with you, and I'm feeling a little cozy." "That's fine. We do not need to be doing exciting things to enjoy each other's company," reasoned Kain. "Right," said Eugenia dryly. "If you say so." The commercials ended, so Eugenia returned to focusing on the Blind Date episode, and when the episode finally ended, she looked at the clock before stretching her elegant limbs, and she turned to look at Kain, but he was gone. Kain drove under the rain to Karina's house, and he knocked at her door, and the person who answered was Bruno. If it isn't my favorite third wheel," said Bruno, giving an exaggerated fake smile. Come in, make yourself at home." Bruno returned to the couch to sit beside Karina, and the couple were watching a telenovela called Bésame Tonto, or Kiss Me Fool. In the episode, the heroine was running away from her beloved. Kain sat down on the floor beside Eugenia, and he rested his head against her knee. And Bruno narrowed his eyes, but he knew that it was a moot point to protest. Karina began to absently-mindedly pet Kain's hair. At a certain point, Kain said, "Karina, would you still have hooked up with Bruno had I accepted your marriage proposal?" Karina laughed nervously, and Bruno pondered how to respond to this scenario, and in the end he said, "Well, answer him, Karina. We have a right to know." "I'm going to level with you, Kain," said Karina. "As much as we like to joke about the topic of getting married, you and I have unreconcilable differences. I want children, you don't want children. I am ambitious while you are content to live in complete stagnation. I like to experience new things while you are afraid of what the world has to offer. More than anything, my main problem with you, Kain, is that you're too immature." Kain sat there like a stone while he listened to Karina's long list of critiques, and Bruno interrupted Karina at a certain point. Be that as it may, the problem that you find in your friend may not be perceived as a defect by another. You need to find a woman that goes with your lifestyle. The whole opposite attraction is a myth because people are not magnets. "I don't quite agree with you, Bruno," said Karina. "My parents were opposites who ended up becoming inseparable. My mother is serious, but my father was lighthearted and playful, and my father was passionate about his work, while mother only gets emotionally attached to patients she personally loves, and those are superficial differences, and it was our core similarities that laid the foundation of our marriage," said Unla, entering the room with snack for her guests. "So tell me, Kain, why are you here? You didn't just come here to watch telenovelas." If you want me to leave, just say so, said Kain, wrapping his arms around Karina's leg. Did Eugenia dump you already? Asked Unla, trying to guess at the problem. Yeah, we used to spend a lot of time together while we were working on her thesis, but as soon as she finished her homework, she stopped calling me. And I sent her a text message 2 days ago and she hasn't even looked at it, said Kain, pouting while looking at his cell phone. Are you certain you sent it to the right number? Asked Karina, taking the phone. Yeah, that's her number, said Kain, frowning. Maybe she's doing a power play, suggested Karina. What a bother. I hate it when women get into the power play mentality, protested Kain. And why is it so important for her to be the one in charge, and why can't we be equal partners? You're making a baseless assumption based on her failure to respond to one text message, said Unla. With women, I find it more efficient to take a direct approach, said Bruno. I want you to go to the store and buy the cheapest flowers you can find, put on a nice outfit, and invite her to a date. Though there is a possibility that during the time you were hesitant and she found herself another. That is something that I hadn't considered, said Kain. Though I suppose it was bound to happen sooner or later. Our beautiful heiress like Eugenia probably has hundreds of suitors. Let's find out then, said Karina, calling up Eugenia. The two maidens chatted like parrots for a bit, and Eugenia eventually brought up the question. So, are you and Kain a couple? I see the two of you hanging out so often. Me and Kain, we are... Is he listening? Did he put you out to this? Asked Eugenia, sitting up. There was a slight smile painted on her face, and the power play that her stepmother had suggested had actually worked. Bruno took the phone from Karina, and then he said to Eugenia, Kain wanted us to ask you to go on a date, just the two of you without any other chaperones. Do you accept? Eugenia pretended to carefully consider her options, and she eventually said yes. And as part of her power play, she insisted that Kain pick the venue for her date. Kain began to think of possible date ideas, but everything that popped into his head sounded boring. The venue's not important, said Bruno, offering more unsolicited advice. As long as the two of you are enjoying each other's company, it won't matter where you take Eugenia. Then again, if Eugenia's doing a power play, there's a good chance that she's going to hate everywhere you take her, said Karina thoughtfully. So regardless of what you pick, you are going to choose wrong. So there's no pressure, Kain. I have a suggestion, said Unla, bringing a cap and some paper strips. We're each going to write a date idea, and then you're going to draw from a hat, and the first set of suggestions are going to be the possible restaurants, and you can't have a date without eating out. Karina and Bruno amused began to write possible restaurant, and Bruno wrote down his favorite junk food restaurant, while Eugenia wrote down her favorite sushi places. Unla also threw in there a few suggestions of her own, and Kain closed his eye and he drew from the hat Cece's Pizza Buffet. Bruno laughed sinisterly, seeing that they had chosen his favorite buffet. The entertainment venue that Kain randomly picked was Boomers. What is Boomers? Asked Karina, looking at the name. It is a park I went to once with my grandpa. It has mini golf, go-karts, arcade games, and laser tag arena, said Kain shyly. Sounds like a lot of fun, said Karina, giggling. As soon as Kain left, Karina said to Bruno, that sounds like the perfect date for two teenagers. Seems about right for those two immature brats, said Bruno dryly. Kain drove back to Eugenia's house, and he had managed to drive without suffering any panic attacks. And it was a good day, even if it was raining. Eugenia saw through the lenses the type of outfit that Kain was sporting, and she frowned when she realized that they were not going anywhere fancy. She went into her walk-in closet and she dressed herself with the cheapest thing she could find, some ripped jean shorts and a Within Temptation t-shirt. Kain drove for an hour till he arrived at Boomer's amusement park. Eugenia raised an eyebrow, extremely perplexed by the situation, and she was starting to regret not accepting Kain's original offer of staying in the bedroom and doing nothing. Kain opened the door for Eugenia, and the two got completely drenched as they ran towards the entrance of the park. The interior had an arcade, and the two went to the coin machine, and they got $100 in quarters. The first game that Kain insisted that they try was the arcade port of Guitar Hero, and it was the first time Eugenia had ever attempted to play a video game, and her mother had been more doll-oriented, and the two butchered a couple of songs together till they got a game over thanks to Eugenia. The two then went to shoot hoops, and when Kain finally ran out of corners, Eugenia breathed a sigh of relief. She no longer needed to pretend to be having fun. And with the rain pausing, Kain took Eugenia to play a bit of mini golf. Eugenia played regular golf with her father, and it was one of the few activities that the two still did together. The first straight course was simple enough for Eugenia to perform, and there was a tricky one with a pyramid in the center. Eugenia got on all fours in order to calculate the proper angle of entry, and some of the teenagers took that chance to snap a few pictures of Eugenia's sublime caboose as seen through her shorts. Another course that gave Eugenia a headache was themed after Tetris. The blocks were at odd angle, and regardless of how much Eugenia tried, she couldn't get the ball into the hole. The trick is a bit counterintuitive, as Kain hitting the golf ball backwards at a right angle, and the ball bounced around, and through a miracle, it made it past the obstacle of Tetris blocks. Giggling, he said, "You have no idea how many hours it took for my grandpa to figure this gimmick." "I take it you visited this place with your grandfather," said Eugenia. "Yeah, it was a good way to kill a few hours under the blistering sun," said Kain. "So we finally have something in common," said Eugenia. "And have you ever played real golf?" "I did a couple of times, but my grandpa became frustrated that I wasn't good at it," said Kain. "So we went back to playing mini golf." Mini golf may not be considered a serious sport, but it does offer its own unique thrill, said Eugenia, trying out the beer pong mini golf course. "So tell me, Kain, other than golf and video games, what else is your idea of fun?" "We could try laser tag," suggested Kain. "I feel that you would have an unfair advantage in that game," protested Eugenia. "We don't have to play against each other," said Kain. "We can be buddy cops." The two went to the laser tag arena, and they were playing against a bunch of other brats and a couple of teenagers and their parents. As soon as the game began, Kain dug for cover, and he dragged Eugenia down with him, and he got close to the walls, and he looked over the corner, and then he delivered a merciless barrage of lasers against the little kids. And once the brats were out of the game, Kain continued to make his way through the maze while keeping Eugenia behind him. When a man entered through Kain's blind spot, Eugenia began to fire blindly, and the noise she was making alerted Kain to the presence of the enemy. And he turned around to finish overkilling the man that had tried to sneak up on Eugenia, and at the end of the game, Eugenia and Kain were the sole survivors. And the first half of the day concluded successfully, and the two then went to eat at the Sissy's buffet pizza. Eugenia didn't know if Kain was dirt poor or if this was a power play from the mouth from a miser. Kain coughed nervously before saying, "If you do not want to eat here, we can go elsewhere." "Oh, fuck it, I'm starving," said Eugenia, getting in line. Eugenia got some rotoni and a few cheese pizza slices. The pizza was good, and so was the pasta, and she figured that making a terrible pasta was something easier said than done. And with some food in the pit of her empty stomach, her mood improved. Kain got for himself a slice of every pizza, and it was his first time at this restaurant, and he wanted to try everything. The main showstopper was the cinnamon rolls, and even Eugenia, with her fancy paladar, was forced to admit that they were delicious, and the fact that everything was freshly baked also added to its yummy factor. Eugenia looked at the time, and then she saw that there was at least 4 more hours till midnight, and Eugenia could only consolidate her sleep past midnight. Alright, that's the end of that chapter. Bye-bye and God bless.